historic and famous sports prize, Hockey Stanley Cup.
New York, after 54 years, your long wait is over. It's over! The Detroit Red Wings win the Stanley Cup!
It's been a long time since a Stanley Cup pennant has been hung from the rafters of Maple Leaf Gardens, and tickets are scarce for this first game of the series. The defending champion Chicago Blackhawks, led by superstar Bobby Hull, won their semifinal series against Montreal 4-2. They have men like Reg Fleming, Red Hay, and Eric Nestorenko, Dollard Saint Laurent, Bronco Horvath, the former Boston Bruin, and the slim, dynamic Stan Mikita, looking for a new Stanley Cup point record. Toronto, having finished second in the regular season, has the advantage of home ice following their 4-2 semifinal victory over the New York Rangers. The Leafs have been building to this night for a long time with stars from their own farm system. Bobby Nevin, Frank Mahovlich, who last year scored more goals than any other Leaf player in history, and Bob Fulford. The key man in the Toronto setup is their coach and general manager, Punch Imlach. And now, with game number 1 of the 1962 Stanley Cup Series all set to go, here's Bill Hewitt.
Hello, Canada. Here we are at Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto for the first game of the Stanley Cup Finals between the Chicago Blackhawks and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Fulford out there at center ice, and from the face-off, the puck goes back to the Chicago blue line. The Blackhawks are wearing the white sweaters, the Toronto Maple Leafs the blue. And in this first period, the Blackhawks move on the attack very quickly. First game of the series, it goes into the corner of the Maple Leaf zone. Hay tried to send it out in front. It goes to the board, far side. Comes back to the blue line, a shot. Goes near the Leaf goal. Bauer stopped it. And Horton goes to the penalty box for the first penalty of the series and gives the Blackhawks the odd man advantage. They take advantage of it very quickly. Here's back to Mikita. Mikita over to Bobby Hull. He shoots, he scores! Hull finds the target. Bobby Hull scoring the first goal of the series. The first period ends 1-0 for the Blackhawks. In the second period now, it's the Leafs carrying the play. There's Keon getting his scores on a pass from Duff as he hopped right in front of the goal crease. When Hall had no chance on the play, and the Leafs have tied it. 1-1, Dave Keon on a quick break from Dick Duff. That gives the Maple Leaf fans their first chance to cheer in the series, opening here at Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto. There's Frank Mahovlich just coming off the ice after scoring to give the Leafs a 2-1 lead. Frank Mahovlich scoring, and the Leafs lead now 2-1 in the second period. As the Blackhawks are changing players on the go. Puck goes at center ice, cleared back into the Leaf zone. Kelly watches his check. Chicago keep the puck in the Leaf zone, trying to get that equalizer. It goes behind the net, and now we're moving into the third period with the Leafs leading 2-1 and trying to hang on. West Chicago trying to get back on even terms. There goes Bobby Nevin up over the Chicago line, takes a shot, and Hall grabs it and left it behind the goal. Stan Mikita, a pass right in front of his own net, and Bobby Hull got back very quickly to cover up. Back goes Hull to center ice. Up over the Maple Leaf line, around the defense. Cutting right in on goal, he shoots. Oh, and Bauer made a sensational save, covering up on the shot. And the puck goes loose into the corner. It's down the right side for the Maple Leafs. Mahovlich has got it. Up over the blue line. He fakes a shot. His shot was weak. It goes off to the side. He's knocked down. Mikita tried to break away on the right wing. The puck goes to center ice, and then Fleming picks up a penalty, goes to the penalty box, and the Leafs take a man advantage. Duff, a shot in front of the goal, stopped by Vasco. The Leafs take their turn. It's stopped for pass on the right wing. Here's Armstrong. He scores! Armstrong picks the short side, and the Leafs go ahead 3-1. An insurance marker for the captain of the Maple Leafs, George Armstrong. 3-1 for Toronto in this first game of the Stanley Cup Finals. Now the Leafs again carrying the Chicago territory in this third period. The puck is loose. It's right in front. He scores. Horton let go. A quick slap shot from the blue line. It caught everybody in front of the goal napping, and it went right into the net. And the Leafs win it 4-1 as Johnny Bauer comes out of his net to greet his teammates. The Leafs win the first game of the series 4-1.
2 nights later, the Gardens is once again packed to the rafters for game number 2.
Here we are at Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto for the second game of the Stanley Cup Finals between the Chicago Blackhawks and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Teams are lining up at center ice, and from the face-off that ushers in the second game, the Toronto Maple Leafs clear the puck into the Chicago zone, and the Blackhawks turn around and go on the move. No scoring in the first period as Billy Harris races down the ice for the Leafs into the Chicago zone into the corner. Reg Fleming after number 6. Gets by Harris, lost it. The Leafs keep the puck in right in front to Harris. He backhands, he scores! Billy Harris on a backhand. Flipped the puck over top of the sprawling Glenn Hall, and it's 1-0 for the Toronto Maple Leafs as we move now into the third period after a scoreless second period. The Leafs trying to desperately hang on as the Hawks have been on the move. Elmer Vasco, number 4, gets away from a check. Up he goes to center ice. Up to the Leaf line. Flipped it through. Duff stopped it and cleared it out. Here's a chance. A shot. Oh, by Stan Mikita. From a pile-up in front of the Maple Leaf goal to tie it 1-1. A 1-1 tie in this third period. The Blackhawks coming from behind to tie it, and it's now a 1-1 tie. Maple Leafs and the Blackhawks making changes in players with the score tied 1-1 in this second game of the Stanley Cup Finals at Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto. Face-off in the Maple Leafs zone. Bond took Horvath out. A flip pass goes into the corner. It goes behind the Maple Leaf goal, and Carl Brewer stops it there. Brewer trying to get the Leaf attack organized. The pass is in front of Mahavlich. Mahavlich took a quick pass from Stewart. And it's 2-1 now for the Maple Leafs. Frank Mahavlich bringing the Maple Leaf Garden fans to their feet. And the Maple Leafs go ahead 2-1. Kelly out to congratulate Mahavlich. All set. Puck is brought back into the Maple Leaf zone. Bauer comes sprawling out and stops Kenny Warren, who went diving over top of the Leaf goalkeeper wide of the net. Puck is still in the Leaf zone. The Blackhawks trying to get back into the game again, trailing by a score of 2-1. Here the Leafs back again into Chicago territory. A shot right in front of the net, and it was cleared off to the side by Stan Mikita. Armstrong keeps the puck in the Chicago zone. Duff and Keon trying to combine. Keon backhand. There's a shot by Armstrong. He scores! George Armstrong taking Keon's pass and backhanding the puck past Glenn Hall, who had no chance on the play. Toronto Maple Leafs 3, Chicago Blackhawks 1, and there's Mikita getting one for Chicago, and it's 3-2 as the Blackhawks bounce back and are right back in the game. The Chicago Blackhawks have taken Glenn Hall out of the net in an effort to get the equalizer. Now they're trailing by a score of 3-2. Here's Kelly taking a shot to knock down by Vasco in front of the net. The Leafs trying to forecheck the Blackhawks and are successful. Stewart stopping Bobby Hull. Now Vasco tries it again. A long pass out to the blue line. Blackhawks just can't get going as Mahavlich breaks it up. Clears the puck into the Chicago zone. Vasco goes behind the net. He's hit by Mahavlich. There goes the bell. The game is over. Here we are at the Chicago Stadium for the third game of the Stanley Cup Finals between the Chicago Blackhawks in red and the Toronto Maple Leafs in white. The puck is at center ice now as the Maple Leafs go on the attack right from the beginning. Move the puck into Chicago territory. There's a loose puck, a chance for Kelly. And his clearing pass went to Palat in the corner, who was rammed by Pulford. Puck is in the Chicago zone. The Blackhawks with Pierre Palat. A quick pass out to Bobby Hull. Up the ice he goes. Here's the slap shot, and Bauer grabs that one right off the post. It was labeled for the left side of the net. No scoring in the first period of this third game. The Chicago Blackhawks looking for their first victory of the playoff. Chicago opening the scoring in the second period, 1-0, as they start to bump. Here's Ab McDonald. He shoots, he scores on a quick play in front of the Maple Leaf goal, fooling Bauer completely as he spun around, getting in front and firing the puck into the open net. Chicago 2, Toronto Maple Leafs, no score in the second period. And the Chicago fans are going wild in the stadium as their beloved Blackhawks take a 2-0 lead. Coach Rudy Pillis is changing his players as the third period is underway now, and the score is still 2-0 Chicago. The Leafs go on the attack, trying to get on the scoring column. Pulford and Shack bump into Warren, number 17 of Chicago, as the Blackhawks tear back into Leaf territory. The Coach Punch Imlich has taken the goalkeeper out. Bauer has gone to the bench. Kelly's trying to cover up. Here's the Blackhawks taking a shot wide of the open net. Here's another shot. They score. Horvath on the rebound. And that's the final score. Bronco Horvath scoring the third and final goal. Chicago wins their first game of the Stanley Cup Finals 3-0.
Following the game, Doug Harvey, playing coach of the New York Rangers, picked the 3 stars for Ward Cornell and the TV audience. By now, the series had settled into a home-and-home affair. Leafs' opening victories were in Toronto. Chicago has won at home, and 2 nights later, the Chicago fans are cheering for a second home victory.
In this first period of the fourth game, there's no score between the Chicago Blackhawks and the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Blackhawks in red, the Leafs in white. As the play starts to open up here in this first period, and from the face-off again at center ice, it's Pierre Palat, number 3, passing it back to Elmer Vasco, number 4, in the left wing. He flips the puck into the Maple Leaf zone. The two teams have been really bumping right from the start, and there's Murray Balfour ramming into Bond. They start to scuffle a little bit along the boards. All the players are watching. The gloves go, and the sticks are down as they start to mix it up. But it didn't take long for the referee and the two linesmen to move in very quickly and get them apart, and nothing really developed. The players are mingling around now, trying to find their gloves and sticks, and Murray Balfour and Bobby Bond have gone to the penalty box, so the teams will play 5 aside. Punch Imlach watches the action. Bauer laboring a little near the net. Chicago Blackhawks still putting on the pressure. There's no score in this first period. Here's another shot, and Bauer falls off stride. Bobby Hull takes the clearing pass in front of the net. He shoots, scores! Bobby Hull took the clearing pass in front of the net to open the scoring in the first period. Chicago won. Toronto Maple Leafs, no score, as Bobby Hull is mobbed by his teammates in this first period. Now then, Don Simmons has been ordered out on the ice by Coach Punch Imlach to replace Bauer, who apparently was injured on that play, that long shot they did the splits on. And Don Simmons, who played in the American Hockey League for Rochester and who is up with the Maple Leafs for just such an occasion, is now in goal after a few practice shots. The Leafs move on the attack. It's Brewer taking a shot wide of the Chicago goal. Mahavlich takes a shot in front of the net. And the Blackhawks return again. Bronco Horvath going to center. He tried to go over the line. Braun and Brewer combine to take him out of the play. They start to bump one another. 1-0 the score. Here's a play around the Maple Leaf net. Fleming gets a shot. Another try, scores! Fleming of the Blackhawks makes it 2-0 in the first period. And he's quite jubilant about it and moves back to center ice where he's greeted by Eric Nestorenko. Bronco Horvath has a word with him as the Blackhawks take a 2-0 lead in the first period. Duff goes back with Armstrong. A pass to Kelly. The shot. He scores! Kelly picked the top right-hand corner on a partial deflection, and that puts the Maple Leafs right back in the game. The score at the end of the first period, Chicago Blackhawks 2, Toronto Maple Leafs 1.
The Leafs fight back gamely, but the home ice advantage holds for Chicago, and they go on to win 4-1, tying the series at 2 games apiece. The Stanley Cup Series always attracts the top hockey personalities of the land. Clarence Campbell, president of the National Hockey League. The general manager and president of the Chicago Blackhawks, Tommy Ivan and James D. Norris. Stafford Smythe, president of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And Maple Leaf Gardens directors John Bassett and W.O. Twaits. Another interested visitor, Senator Hartland Molson, president of the Montreal Canadiens.
All set for the face-off. In this, the 5th game of the Stanley Cup Finals between the Chicago Blackhawks and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Chicago in white, the Maple Leafs in blue. Fulford from the face-off, a pass to Brewer, number 2. The Leafs clear the puck into the Chicago zone, over the line. It's a pass over into the side, a pass out in front. Fulford lets the shot go, it rolls in front, he scores! Fulford on a backhand as it rolls through the crease in between Hull's legs and into the net. And it's 1-0 for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Bobby Fulford scoring after just 17 seconds on Glenn Hall, and the Leafs take the lead. Now the puck is back in the Maple Leaf zone as Makita let a drive go, and the Blackhawks put on the pressure, trailing 1-0. Back at the blue line, Makita, a backhand, a pass to Ab McDonald, a shot. Simmons stopped it. He stops it again. He's pushed in the net. It's still loose. Ab McDonald, and finally Simmons dives out to cover up. A close play around the Maple Leaf goal as the Blackhawks look for the equalizer. Here's Fulford shooting. He scores! Fulford went right down the ice and caught the top left-hand corner with a rising wrist shot. And that makes it 2-0 at Maple Leaf Gardens as the fans go wild. Toronto Maple Leafs 2, Chicago Blackhawks no score. Set for the face-off again. Fulford, Olmstead, and Stewart. Hull, Hay, and Murray Balfour in front of the face-off. Up over the line into Leaf territory. Murray Balfour shoots and scores! He got a quick pass in front of the Maple Leaf net and had Simmons beaten all the way into the bottom left-hand corner. First period ends with the score 2-1 for the Toronto Maple Leafs. From the start of the second period, Ab McDonald is coming in. He takes a shot. He scores. Ab McDonald ties it up 2-2 in the early minutes of the second period. And it's a 2-2 tie. Ab McDonald goes on to score another one to make it 3-2, and the Blackhawks are out in front. 3-2 the score now for Chicago, and Ab McDonald's second goal. And from the faceoff, Harris is out there with Mahavlich as Horton gives him a pass in front. Harris scores on a tip-in from outside the goal crease. A deflection by Billy Harris on a shot by Tim Horton. And it's tied up again, 3-3. Chicago Blackhawks 3, Toronto Maple Leafs 3. A seesaw battle as the Maple Leafs carry back into Chicago territory again. Here's Horton taking a shot. It's in front. Ball stopped it twice. Keon just scores on a backhand. After Glenn Hall had made two sensational saves, on the third try, Keon lifted the puck over him, and the Maple Leafs go ahead 4-3. Toronto Maple Leafs 4, Chicago Blackhawks 3 in the second period of the fifth game. Here's a chance for Palat, and Simmons made a brilliant save on the Chicago defenseman. Kelly trying to get away, couldn't get the puck out of his own zone. Then Mahavlich tipped it off his knee. Down the ice he goes, one man back. He's trying to get around him, and he's taken off by Vasco into the corner, gets it out in front. It goes over to the side. It's right in front again. Mahavlich gets a try, scores! Mahavlich finally got his second try and made no mistake into the open net. In the third period, Mahavlich made it 6-3. Armstrong 7-3. Turner got one back for the Chicago Blackhawks to make it 7-4. Pulford scored his third goal of the night, and the final score, Toronto Maple Leafs 8, Chicago Blackhawks 4. For the face-off at the Chicago Stadium, the Chicago Blackhawks in red, the Toronto Maple Leafs in white, who clear the puck into the Chicago zone. Elmer Vasco picks up the loose puck behind the Chicago net and heads out towards the Maple Leaf line. Up to center ice comes Vasco over the blue line. In the Maple Leaf territory, Simmons cleared the puck off to the side. Chicago keep it in, pressing in the early moments. A long shot by Palat went wide of the net. Makita gets it back to the blue line. Chicago trying to keep it in. Maple Leafs try to move out. Horton takes a long shot as he crossed the blue line, and Glenn Hall stopped it. Fleming couldn't get it out. A shot by Nevin was grabbed by Glenn Hall, and he went outside the goal crease with it and held onto it for a face-off. First period is over, and there's no score between the Chicago Blackhawks and the Toronto Maple Leafs as Rich Fleming gets the gate to start this second period. Kelly clears the puck into the Chicago zone. Vasco is knocked into the boards. Harris keeps the puck in the Chicago zone. Kelly back to Harris. Harris back to Stanley. His shot was stopped by Glenn Hall. Back to Stanley again, a backhand. That was stopped by the Chicago defense. The rebound. Mahavlich trying to center it. Flipped it out in front of the net. Kelly a backhand. It goes right to Stanley, a shot, and it hit a skate and deflects off to the wing. Glenn Hall trying to get his teammates out in front of him. There's Harris trying to get a shot all around the Chicago goal. It goes into the corner. Glenn Hall bats at it. It's still behind the Chicago goal into the corner. Here's a shot. Glenn Hall let it go wide. Armstrong fakes a pass, passes it across the goal mouth. A shot. Evans deflects into the corner. It comes out in front again off Duff into the corner on the opposite side. Fleming a pass to Nesterenko. Nesterenko and Hull. Hull winds up a slap shot, and Simmons let it go wide. It deflects back to the blue line, and Duff races down the left wing. Nesterenko took him out of the play. There's a shot that Glenn Hall stopped as it went flying by. Then Simmons makes the save as the two teams again go from end to end, opening up in this very crucial game. And both goalkeepers have been sensational. Bobby Bond picks up a penalty. Chicago have the odd man, playing 6 men to 5. A shot. Makita gets the rebound to Hay in the corner. Hay and Makita trying to get it back to blue line. They do. Palat lets his shot go. It's Makita trying to get a shot. Simmons watches. There's another shot by McDonald, and it deflects over the screen into the crowd. And it's still a scoreless tie after 2 periods.
Too excited to watch the game in person, the injured Johnny Bauer joins the millions of other fans watching on television.
We're in the third period, still a scoreless tie. Simmons coming up with a save. Neither team has been able to score. A scoreless tie as Mahavlich races down the left wing over the blue line in Chicago territory. Cutting in front, gets the set, takes his shot. That was knocked down by Palat. He didn't see it. But it's called by referee Frank Adveri, and there's no further play, and a face-off in the Chicago zone. The tension is mounting here at the Chicago Stadium in this sixth game in the Stanley Cup Finals. The Leafs lead 3-2, and there's no score in this sixth game as Duff loses possession. Hull shoots and scores! Bobby Hull stole the puck from in front of the Leafs goal and fired into the short side. And Bedlam breaks loose from the Chicago Stadium as the Blackhawks go ahead 1-0. Chicago 1. Toronto Maple Leafs, no score in the third period. Goal was scored by Bobby Hull as he caught the short side. Chicago carry right back into the Maple Leaf zone again. Is broken up by Horton. Horton with Olmstead on his right. Fulford on the left. Over to Olmstead. He takes his shot. That's stopped by Glenn Hall right in the goal crease. And he holds the puck there for a face-off. Another try all around the Chicago goal. It goes to Mahavlich. Over to Nevin. He shoots and scores! Bobby Nevin, number 11, has tied it up for the Maple Leafs on a pass from Frank Mahavlich. And the Maple Leafs tie it 1-1. Bobby Nevin, number 11, leaving the ice after scoring the tying goal for the Toronto Maple Leafs in this third period. All set for the face-off in the Chicago zone. It goes to Mahavlich to take the backhand. Glenn Hall stops that. They all poke at it. But it's covered up by Glenn Hall right in his own goal crease. Harris was standing there. It's still in Chicago territory. Nevin comes from the side, hits the side of the net with a hard shot. And Elmer Vasco clears it along the boards. Chicago trying to get out of their own zone. Toronto Maple Leafs come right back again. Over the line, Armstrong to Horton. Over to Duff. He turns, he scores! Picked up on the range from right in front of the net. He just turned around and fired it. And he beat Glenn Hall cleanly on the shot from close range. And that gives the Maple Leafs a 2-1 lead in this third period. The Chicago Blackhawks have taken their goalkeeper out using 6 attackers, and they're back in their own zone. Leafs trying to hang on, leading 2-1 as Stan Mikita failed to get away. Following up with Murray Balfour, cleared the puck. Bobby Hull races after. He's watched. Nevin, number 11, tries to flip the puck over the blue line, but can't. Mikita keeps it in. Hull to Hay out in front of the net. Brewer overskates the puck, knocks it to the side. Hay flips it out in front. Simmons stops it. The game is over. And the Leaf players come pouring over the boards to congratulate one another. Now here's Doug Maxwell.
For the first time in 11 years, a Toronto team has won the Stanley Cup, and as you might expect, the first congratulations come from the Chicago Blackhawks. Worthy finalists, tough defenders. The team that had been nudged and nurtured by Punch Imlach had achieved its goal. A new Stanley Cup pennant was now assured for Maple Leaf Gardens. The 1962 series was in the tradition of great Stanley Cup series. It had suspense and excitement, drama and variety. It was a series that fulfilled the wish of the donor of the Stanley Cup, who wrote in 1892 of his willingness to donate a trophy to be held by the champion hockey team in the Dominion. Since then, the Stanley Cup has become the most prized hockey trophy in the world, a trophy which has inspired hockey players and fans for over 65 years, and a trophy which in 1962 was won by the Toronto Maple Leafs.